What's up, everybody? Ben Lampkins here with Anglers Edge Outdoors. In this video, we're going to be going over some tips on hiring fishing guides. We're going to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly, so stick around. Alright everybody, so spring is on the way, things are warming up, water temps are going up, things are getting exciting. Been out fishing a little bit myself, been getting into them pretty good, so but with that being said, and this nicer weather coming on, maybe you guys are thinking about hiring a fishing guide. We're going to kind of discuss some of those things, maybe help you out on what guide to choose for your next trip. For me, with this mostly being catfishing, my own goal was I wanted to catch my own first trophy catfish on my own without hiring a guide, so I kind of decided to do all that on my own, and which I eventually did. That was just kind of my own personal goal. But I have hired guides quite a few times on striper fishing trips, and I have a few buddies that's done a couple other trips with guides as well. So I can kind of go over the experiences I've had with those trips. Is similar situation. You're hiring somebody to take you out fishing. So the same goes on if you're looking to hire for catfish or striper or whatever it is. So, but for me, I've had some pretty awesome trips and some not so good trips. We're going to kind of go over that. But first and foremost, if you're going to hire somebody, make sure they're a licensed charter captain. It's not somebody just taking their boat out and charging you. They got to be a licensed captain. So that's the first thing. And then from there, you're probably going to be going on to their Facebook pages or websites, and they're all going to have big fish, and a lot of them on their websites are going to make it look like every trip you go out, you're going to just slay giant fish. And a lot of times, that's the case. They can take you out and put you on them. But they're going to make it look like that's every time. That's not always the case. Just kind of depends on what you're going after and when and all that. So you're going to pick a good time of year to go. Around again, it depends on what state you're in and what kind of fish you're targeting. You want to, if you pick a month like May or something when the weather finally straightens out, you decrease that chance of any cancellations due to bad weather. Everything kind of straightens out by then, in April and March. Cold fronts, there's a lot of cold fronts and thunderstorms and things that can cause a trip to be canceled. So maybe that's something to kind of consider, but I've had some great trips in March and April, and you just kind of have to take that chance of cold fronts and stuff. So, but that's a couple of things you can consider, so I'm just going to kind of go over some of my experiences with guides. We'll kind of start with maybe the good guide is going to put you on some fish, obviously. You may see these, like I was saying, these websites and Facebook's going to show you that they're always on them, but that's kind of a starting point. Some of that, we'll go over that a little later in the bad part, that some of that they manipulate that a little bit to kind of make it look like they're either getting into them when they're really not. They're just kind of posting to get business, which is fine. That's just like anything else. So the reason why I know that is because I've actually talked to guides that say they do that. That being said, that's just kind of something just to kind of look at, but we're going to want to dig a little deeper than that. One of the things I do, with my research, obviously, you can go check out their pages and stuff, see what kind of fish they're getting into. And then you're going to kind of want to go from my best thing to figuring out is if they do Facebook Lives is a great way of getting to know that guide a little better, because you're going to want, for one, to get put on those fish. You're going to want to know they're actually on them at that time. And you're going to want to kind of know their personality a little bit. That kind of plays a big part. If you go out with a guide, he's either got kind of an attitude or not real talkative, whatever the situation is, and that, if that's kind of a big deal with you, those Facebook Lives really kind of give you an idea of their personality and how their method of fishing. That might be a thing, how they fish, what types of tackle and rods they use, or all things that you can kind of find out. And you're going to want to kind of look ahead of time, follow them for a little bit, start that process kind of early. Don't just jump in and hire the first guy. You take your time with it, because it's your good hard-earned money you're spending on it, and you want to make sure you get the best out of it. So that's a good way to start off. Watch those, kind of follow their pages, see what they got going on. It's a little bit more personal that way. So I've had that. I've been on trips with guides that I've had one that just kind of sat there quiet, didn't really say anything, but man, he put me on some fish, so that's what I paid him for, and I was perfectly fine with that. I'll take getting put on fish over not any day, but so and then there's been some that I went out, a huge cold front came in, the fish just shut off, but I decided to go out anyway. We didn't even get a bite, but the guide was awesome. He was just like sitting like a buddy I've known forever. He just hanging out. I just had laughs and a good time just hanging out with him. Even though we weren't catching fish, he made the trip good, fun, and so those are kind of things you might want to think about. Even if you don't catch fish, it'd still be fun trip. But and they always try to put in good effort regardless. So those are kind of some of the experiences I had that was kind of made the trip worth it good. And I decided to go. Sometimes they'll call and cancel on bad weather or fronts and things, and that's fine. They're just trying to look out for your safety, or trying to make sure they get you on the fish. So they may reschedule for you, which is perfectly fine. Or if it's cold front and you decide you just want to go, like I did. We were already planning the trip as out of town. I was like, let's give it a try. So that was kind of on me. Otherwise, those are the same personality. Can they put you on fish? Are they pretty consistent? Are they really on them at that time? Those are kind of the good things about it. And kind of do your part. On if guides, you get a good guide, they're doing do your part, be on time. I've been at docks before with guides saying, oh, man, my guide was supposed to be here an hour ago. I've been waiting on him. Try to be on time. If you got a hard time waking up, or had a few drinks the night before, and you're the type that has a hard time getting up and getting on time, just make sure you are, because that's their living. You're hiring them through, and then they got to get up. They get up early in the morning and go out and catch some bait, and then they sit there waiting for you. And in some cases, that first hour or two is the most important bite, and they're trying to get you on it. So if you show up late or what have you, you kind of ruin a trip there. So it's just important to play your part. Don't leave your guide hanging high and dry. I've seen them just never hear from their client. They get up there, those guys are trying to make a living. Most of them require a deposit, but that doesn't cover their full day of showing up, and when they could have had somebody else out there. So just kind of make sure you do your part on showing up on time, making any payments and things that are required, and tip your guide if they do a great job and you had a good time. Most of the time you're going to want to give them a little extra tip on whatever you decide that to be. I know some guys love when you bring some deer sausages and jerkies and stuff on the boat too, so that's always a little bonus you can do there for them. But I've had some great times with some good guides, learn from them. If they're taking the time, they're willing to, instead of just putting you on the fish, they're kind of explaining how they're doing it, and they take the time to show you their graph and how they're finding that fish. And if they educate you and put you on fish and you have a good time, that's worth every penny right there. That's the kind you're looking for. And you can kind of usually see a lot of that in those Facebook Lives when they're running them, or however you can kind of see or sometimes they'll post a video or whatever. You get an idea of what their setup is and how they operate. So So that's kind of the good on it, and I will kind of go over the kind of the bad parts. There has been for me. I had a guide once. He was pretty good in the beginning. I took a couple of guys out that's never really fished with me before, but I've been pretty experienced, and we're striper fishing, and it was artificial, so a lot of casting and reeling. And these guys were kind of new to it. They didn't do a lot of, being kind of precise with that casting, and I was getting on fish pretty good, and that guy kind of catered to me, and because I was easier for him, and he didn't want to take the time, I was actually showing those guys what to do, while the guide, kind of sat on his butt and was kind of taking more time with me because I knew what I was doing. So he was actually kind of making fun of them guys. I mean, they could handle it. It was all fun and games, but all in all, his job was to put those guys on fish. They were struggling to get fish because he just didn't take the time with them. I had to kind of show him how to cast properly and stuff, which was kind of should have been his job, and I was fine with it, but. And then, so that was kind of how that trip went, and I'll kind of get back to that in the ugly section of this. And then I've had a buddy that went out. They hired a guide for bow hunt or bow fishing trip, and they said it was just absolutely miserable. The guide was. It was nighttime, with the lights on. Well, the bugs were absolutely horrible. So, that's. Not necessarily the guide's fault, it's a time of year thing, but that wasn't really the complaint. It was more about how he just kind of rushed them through everything because he had clients with that bow fishing. They can kind of stack their clients, and if they said it just felt like he was just rushing them through real quick to kind of try and get the job over. I think they ended up shooting like one shad that big all night, and he said every time they seen a fish, he would just kind of gun the boat and wouldn't even give them a chance, and they'd just take off, and they were almost knocking them over in the boat, taking out. They were just going through so quick because he wanted to hurry up and get that next dollar. So you want to kind of watch out for those kind of rush you through greedy type of guides. I'm not saying they're all like that. There's some fantastic guides out there. You just got to kind of find which ones those are. Just make sure you just kind of stay away from some of the either greedy ones or the ones that aren't going to take the time to show you how to do it, or at least educate you or whatever. But and then kind of get into the ugly part of it is I've been ripped off by guides that I went back because I got on fish pretty good with that other guide. It was pretty good, and then I went back with him, and he got even lazier. He would not. Had me doing all kinds of stuff, like getting his boat, launching his boat, and like it was just weird. I guess he's just been doing it forever. I'm sure he was a great guide at one point, but I guess I don't know how long he's been doing it. He just was getting more and more lazy with it. So, and then so I was out with him, and it was 4 striper, and he was just like kept putting us on white bass because they're just easy. And anytime I try to kind of mention, I thought, hey, where's the striper at? He would just kind of, they're just not here right now. And it was kind of weird he was avoiding putting in the effort for the stripers. I mean, white bass, I traveled 4 hours to go on that striper fishing trip. And he's trying to put us on white bass just so he could say we caught something. We ended up only catching like a couple of smallmouths that weren't even, they were under 15 inches, little dinks. And he was acting like, we just caught a giant. He did his job. And this was I hired him for a full day on that trip. So I'll get to that in a minute, but so I hired him for a full day. He was putting us on dinks. I drove all that time, rented a cabin, hired him for a full day, and he's not even going after the right fish. So then it's getting to be about half. I don't know, maybe so half of a day, technically half of a trip, because they had I think like a 4-hour trip and an 8-hour trip. I hired him for an 8-hour trip, and we're coming up on the 4-hour mark, and he gets a phone call that his new boat's in, and He's like, oh, my new boat's in, and he's like, man, these fish just aren't biting. So he's kind of like didn't want to fish anymore. Oh, they're just not biting. We need to get back to the dock. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is weird, but I got you for a full day. So it's like, well, the days you're just not hitting, we're gonna go ahead and head back to the dock. And I knew he was full of it. He wanted to go get on that new boat. So I'm like, whatever. So we get back to the dock, and I'm thinking, we get back to right at that 4-hour mark, which would have made for a half a day. And I was like, all right, just to make sure. I was like, what do I owe you? And he's like, well, you hired me for a full day. You owe me the such and such amount for the full day. And I'm thinking, dude, we only put in half a day, and you didn't even put us on the right fish. So I'm not the confrontational type. I paid him, moved on, and I'll never hire him again. That's how we're going to. Hired guides a lot out that way, so he ended up losing more money, and plus the word of mouth. I'm gonna tell people not to use them. So that was kind of I've been ripped off by some guides. So you just kind of want to watch out for that. So that's kind of been the ugly for me, but I've also had some good trips. There's one I went on striper. Not only did he put me on striper fast. He catered to. I had my girlfriend at the time with me. He made sure she was set. All the ride, just everything. And some of them will clean the fish afterwards. Me, that doesn't matter. If they do, that's a bonus. If that's a big deal for you, having all the fish cleaned. Some, depending on what you're going after. Some are catch and release. It just depends on what you're going after. You might want to look into that if you're big on want to keep or catch and release. Sometimes like stripers and when it's hot out, they recommend not releasing them because they just die anyway. So and as far as catfish go, some of these guides, with the trophy size, there's some of them like 10 pounds and under to let you keep them. So there's that, which is good. Some of them guys are out there hitting them waters every day, 7 days a week. They're catching big, trophy fish, and they're putting them back for you and me to go out and enjoy. And yeah, it gives them for continuing on taking their clients. But can you imagine the hurting they'd put on those trophy fish? As all those guys were constantly out there keeping every one of those big trophy cats and stripers and stuff like that. It probably put a hurting on some of those bigger fish. So I kind of respect that they release those bigger ones like that. So if that's something to think about on if you're wanting to kind of keep or what, and that all just depends on what you're after. If you're going after crappie or whatever, obviously they're probably going to let you keep pretty much anything you want. It's up to you throwing back on the bigger ones. But when it gets into like trophy catfish, a lot of them kind of have like that weight limit on what to keep. So but yeah, that's pretty much been my experience. Maybe that'll kind of help guide you on what you're wanting to do next. So just kind of make sure they got the right personality, they can put you on fish, and make sure they're reputable, they're licensed. You don't want to get ripped off by somebody that's either not licensed or they're just tired of guiding and it's became a job to them and they just don't care anymore. I've also heard other horror stories about being out with guides and stuff, so it's not always as simple as just getting one and going and it's all great and everything. So and then just kind of do your part on being on time and everything. I think usually you cover those few things, look into what kind of guide you're wanting, and I think you'll be pretty happy and your money well spent. You and your friends can have a great time and enjoy getting on some good fish. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and be safe out there and get some of those trophy fish in the boat.